Okay, that's great. We have our guest on the screen. Good afternoon, everyone. We are very pleased to be joined today by the Regional Director for East and Horn of Africa and Great Lakes of the UN Refugee Agency, Mamadou Dian Balde. He's joining us from Nairobi to brief you on the humanitarian needs inside Sudan and in neighboring countries. Please, go ahead.
Thank you, Daniela, for having me. Is it working?
And do your open remarks, and after you're going to open the floor for questions, please. Thanks so much.
So thank you very much, Daniela, for having me, and to all of you to speak to you today uh, about this very, very sad milestones, which is almost 2 years after the brutal conflict started in Sudan, that have had a very, very, very negative impact on millions of people. And I can speak a bit more about them later. You all have seen the Secretary General's own statement following the atrocities that have happened in Zamzam displacement site, as well as Abu Shuk near the city of El Fasher, all of them in Darfur. These are just unacceptable events that are happening. Another example of the massive violations of human rights that have been happening in Sudan and that have been forcing close to 9 million people, Sudanese, to be internally displaced, and close to 4 million refugees going into neighboring countries. Close to 2 years ago, I spoke to you about this situation, and we are already warning the international community about these massive violations, calling for this situation to find peace, ceasefire. Very sadly, 2 years after the beginning of the situation, my talking points haven't changed. It's again massive violations of human rights, targeting people in Darfur, but also in other part of the country. And this is what we see today. Close to 2 years down the line, we have seen refugees going into Chad, going into Egypt, going into South Sudan, as well as returnees going into Ethiopia, Eritrea, and as well as Central African Republic. These were the countries that were part of the initial regional refugee response plan, where UN agencies, international NGOs, national NGOs come together, and we coordinate our work together so that we can support the brothers and sisters affected by the Sudan crisis. About 2 years, what we see today is that countries that were not immediate neighbors of Sudan are being affected. It includes Uganda, which is already hosting 1.8 million refugees, but also Libya, another neighboring country. So, Daniela, just to recapitulate, massive violations of human rights that we see coming close to 2 years of these very sad milestones. And I wanted to add two more points. The second one is to say that countries have been hosting refugees. Regional countries, neighboring countries have not closed their borders. They've been receiving the refugees. Communities that don't have enough have shared what they have, and that's really the true spirit of solidarity. And this is what we see happening in the region. And our call for support for the 111 partners, part of the regional refugee response plan, remain very valid. As we speak now, it is funded at around 10%. We thank the various partners who have contributed, but if you are starting the fourth month, very soon the fifth month of this year, and you are only funded at 10%, you can see that the level of support to have food, to have water, to have protection services, education, shelter, housing, this level of support is going to be extremely, extremely low. And finally, It's again to reiterate the need for ceasefire, because the refugees I see, whether at the borders with Chad or at the borders with South Sudan, where I have been the past few weeks, or in all other places, they are asking us that what they want is a normalcy so that they can return home and take care of themselves. Thank you.
For your open remarks, we will open the floor. Edie, please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mr. Balde. On behalf of the United Nations Correspondents Association for doing this briefing, my name is Edith Lederer from the Associated Press. A couple of follow-up questions. I think I missed the total amount of the appeal that's 10% funded. Can you repeat that number? And second and thirdly, are there any additional details on what's going on in both Zamzam and Abu Shuk today following these terrible killings by the RSF? And thirdly, you said that there was a spillover to neighboring countries, including Uganda and Libya. Are there some specific figures, and what's the great impact been? What effect has this had? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Daniela. Should I go?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay. No, thank you, Edil. It's a very good questions. And the first one, the request of the Regional Refugee Response Plan is 1.8 billion US dollars to be able to serve 4.9 million refugees and immediate hosts in neighboring countries. And this Regional Refugee Response Plan was launched early February by both the High Commissioner and along with the Humanitarian Response Plan for Sudan, and both of them being very much aligned. The launch of that Regional Refugee Response Plan has, and we really hope that tomorrow's event in London will also show greater support for the support for the Sudanese brothers and sisters who've been displaced. So yes, 1.8 billion for close to 5 million people. What I can say additionally is that the 111 partners who are part of that response plan that are coordinated, a third of them are national partners, so people who are closer to the realities, in addition to international NGOs, as well as national NGOs and the UN organizations. Additional details to what has today very egregious violations of human rights that have happened in Zamzam as well as Abu Shuk. What we have seen is that people keep leaving those places, those who are able to do so. We have seen internal movement also towards as well as around El Fasher. And our cause is to help as many people as possible, those who want to seek safety, to be able to achieve safety. As we speak, we are also aware that when these massive violations of rights that are affecting vulnerable Sudanese, as well as our own humanitarian partners, our colleagues, our partners, and you know that 9-10 of them have lost their lives. When this happens, we also have to be able to prepare and be ready with our contingency plans in neighboring Chad. So we are also working closely with our colleagues and partners in Chad in case there is a larger number of people coming. The spillover about 2 years ago, most of the refugees would go to Egypt, would go to Chad, would go to neighboring South Sudan. And as we speak today, over 70,000 have reached Uganda. Uganda has problem of its own, and Uganda has thankfully opened and kept its borders open despite receiving 1.8 million refugees as we speak. They have added to that 70,000 Sudanese refugees, and Libya over 200,000. And what we also know that is if a regional refugee response plan like the one we are coordinating is only funded at 10%, more people will move. And we know that one route is towards Southern Africa, one route is towards Eastern Africa and to the Gulf countries, and another route is towards Europe. This one we see increasing number of refugees moving towards all these neighboring regions because, again, Sudan is at the center of the African continent. Again, the call to peace and to ceasefire. Back to you.
Thank you. Gabriel, please.
Thank you, Mr. Balde. This is Gabriel Elizondo from Al Jazeera English. I just wanted to clarify, follow up on Edie's question. If I heard you correctly, 70,000 refugees to Uganda and 200,000 to Libya. Is that correct?
Over 200,000 into Libya, and the numbers keep fluctuating. In Uganda, we have the registration systems that is in existence, and Gabriel, we can also provide you more detailed information if you wish to receive more.
No problem. Thank you. And one quick follow-up is, what are your expectations for the London meeting tomorrow? What would you like to see come out of that, other than a ceasefire? I assume the ceasefire would be the, but other than that, what tangible steps do you hope that those 20 foreign ministers can achieve in London?
One expected outcome, and the High Commissioner Filippo Grandi will be at the London conference, is greater support to the refugees and to the host governments. The refugees are in need of urgent life-saving support, including in relation to food, to health, to support to all the violations of human rights that families have gone through and keep going through, support in relation to shelter, and support in relation to all the protection services. So great support to the refugees as well as to the refugee hosting countries is going to be hopefully achieved in London. I would also say that that solidarity that we see going down in times of you see, of inward looking, we hope that people really realize that it is in the best interest of everyone to be able to tackle the root causes of the Sudan situation, in addition to the support to the people who have been directly impacted by this crisis.
Thank you very much. Amélie, please.
Amélie Bottelier from AFP News Agency. We know that a lot of the refugees who left Sudan went to South Sudan, and a lot of South Sudan refugees who were in Sudan went back to South Sudan after the beginning of the war. Now the situation has deteriorating a lot in South Sudan as well, with the UN fearing a new civil war. So have you seen any kind of sign that the people that moved to South Sudan are moving again, going somewhere else, or any kind of new flow of people displacing from South Sudan as well? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Evelyn. It's indeed, South Sudan has received over 1 million people in the course of 2 years alone. And that represents quite a large increase of the population living in South Sudan, a country that is already having challenges of its own, economic challenges, and I'm sure you have been seeing and witnessing this. What has happened recently in South Sudan was mostly linked with events in the regions that are closer to Gambela, which have seen some refugees going into Ethiopia. And yes, it is a very worrying situation. Contingency plans are being made, but you should also, I would say, remember that South Sudan already has 2.2 million refugees in the region, including close to 900,000 in Uganda, 500,000 into Ethiopia. So South Sudan already is the second largest country producing refugees, right after Sudan as we speak today. So indeed, it is very worrying. We are getting ready, but at times when we have limited funding, limited support, partners, governments, we are going to have quite some challenges. So far, government have been very receptive. Government have been opening their borders. But it's certainly something that we have to watch. I think it might be also helpful to just remind in terms of scale. You see, 1 in 3 Sudanese, as we speak today, are displaced. 1 in 3 for every Sudanese. 1 in 6 internally displaced persons globally come from Sudan. And that's to tell you in 2 years what has affected brothers and sisters of Sudan. And 1 in 13 refugees globally comes from Sudan. This is to tell you how this brutal crisis, this worst humanitarian situation has affected millions of lives. Back to you.
Thank you. Please.
Thank you, Mr. Balde. Ahmed Fathi, ATN News. With close to 10 million people internally displaced and maybe 3 to 4 million displaced to neighboring countries in East Africa and North Africa, how the UNHCR coping with the registration process, taking in consideration that again, getting those, especially for who are displaced into other countries, getting the designation of the UNHCR as a refugee allows them to seek resettlement in a third country. How far is the UNHCR accomplished with the registration process, and what are the obstacles that's limiting its completion of this important process for the people who are displaced in order to allow them to seek safe passage to other countries? Thank you.
Shukran, Ahmed. It's a major difficulty, major challenges, but UNHCR is not alone. So we support member states and the governments of the 7 immediate neighboring countries, as well as the government of Uganda, are quite experienced in the registration of refugees, of asylum seekers, and we are working closely with them. So government, local authorities are being very much very much supported in taking the lead in registering the refugees. What I would also say is that while they are keeping their borders open, and that's perhaps one issue that needs to really be very much reflected on, is that they cannot do this all the time. And this is a message they share with us. While on the one side, the refugees who find safety tell us how happy they are to find safety, governments are also telling us that with support, funding, financing going down, it's going to be extremely difficult. That's not the spirit of the Refugee Convention. It's not the spirit of the Global Compact on Refugees. The spirit of these instruments are to say that the refugee problem is a global as well as an issue that needs to be tackled through solidarity and greater solidarity. Resettlement to third countries has not been very much forthcoming so far. But you might also want to know that resettlement outside usually immediate countries has been, has been reducing very sadly. So a large responsibility on the immediate neighbors of Sudan so far, and they deserve support, and they need greater support from all of us in the international community.
A follow-up, please, Mr. Balde. What's the percentage of those refugees who fled Sudan into neighboring countries have been registered and received UNHCR status? To the overall.
Ahmad, in the region, refugees receive refugee status mostly from the governments that are hosting them. All of these governments are signatories to the 1951 Refugee Convention, and over the past few years, we've been able to work with them to support them into registering refugees, issuance of ID cards, as well as a recognition of refugee status. So unlike other parts of the world, this is a region where we've been able to help most of the government being able to tackle as well as to address that using their own capacities. What I can also add to that is you see the governments in the region supporting that life-saving registration require that additional solidarity, and this is one of the very core work that we do as UNHCR. And finally, perhaps just to add, beyond the Sudan situation, beyond the South Sudan situation, that the Eastern Horn of Africa and Great Lakes host 5.6 million refugees, perhaps the largest globally, in addition to 22 million internally displaced persons.
Thank you. Do we have any further questions in the room? If not, I just want to say thank you very much to Mamadou Dian Balde, who is the Regional Director for Eastern Horn of Africa and Great Lakes of the UN Refugee Agency. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much, everyone. Stefan is going to be here shortly to brief you. Thank you.